First of all, I think there needs to be no live audience for debates. And I know this, in this one, they weren't really loud. They weren't really saying anything. Some old ones, there's definitely people cheering, but this one they didn't, which was cool. I'm glad that they added that this time. But I don't think there should be any live audience. I don't even know if they should be like. I think you should honestly just cut the other person's audio when one person's speaking.
Yeah.
Like when during the
Well, I
answer the
bet in the
question
past they
part.
never had to do that, but now they have to.
Yeah, yeah,
Just
exactly.
to
And you're
because
probably gonna have to,
yeah, like
which is
when
nuts.
they're translating it to other languages, this is something I saw.
Yeah,
There was
interesting.
just the translators were just mumbling over each other. They couldn't even get any of the thoughts out. They had to speak over each other. And
Yeah.
then subtitles for people who are deaf.
It's
No,
impossible.
they couldn't follow. They
It's
just couldn't
totally
follow it.
impossible. Dude, yeah, and that wow, and that's that's one of those things where it's like you don't even think about that, but that's important, and especially translators for like within the country, not just internationally, right? Like if you don't care about international, whatever, there's people within America that need the translators. So yeah, that's really important, and that's a really good point. So I really think that even further bolsters this during the part where it's moderator asks one candidate a question, let them. He said it. First of all, that guy needs to get replaced, but we'll talk about that in a second, like how they choose moderators, but. They even said it 2 minutes uninterrupted. So why don't you just literally take away the possibility for the other person to interrupt? And you let the person say whatever they want. Like he was outlining this to Trump, which was hilarious. They talked to him like a kid at some points. He's like, "Sir, okay, sir, are you listening? Do you understand?"
Yeah.
But he was like, "Listen, you're gonna get 2 minutes. You can say whatever you want. I'm gonna ask you about this. If you want to talk about something else, go ahead. But I'm gonna ask you this." Perfect. So now cut the other person's audio so they can't interrupt. So it doesn't even matter what they're saying. And then if the other person wants to respond, it's on them to remember or mark it down or something to then reply in their time. Because the time is not to be constantly retaliate against point to point to point to point, because then the point becomes retaliation, not actually getting your message, which credit to Biden, he said that a few times. I still think he fell for it more than he should have, but he did do that enough. But so that would allow that. Like put them in fucking sound booths. I don't care if they can do it on Family Feud. Why can't they do that for the presidential debate where you put them where you can't hear them and they can actually give their answers, man? Like fuck that. Steve Harvey might need to moderate the next debate. Holy shit, dude. But I don't know. Have you ever thought about that? Like how it's formed, how it's structured, just that setting up to fail?
Yeah. Well, like something I mentioned earlier was that there was always a rhetoric to each of the opponent's speech. There was always a way that they were saying it that they kind of practiced almost. It was like the art of persuasion, even. It was
Right.
like you could have these facts, but you're speaking to a general population that isn't as educated as the experts. So you have to dumb it down a little bit, right? You have to put it in ways that they understand. But in this, it was just complete lack of anything,
Yeah.
any substance. They really just
Yeah.
went on the bare minimum, like talking smack about each other. They were talking about what the others didn't do instead of what they're going to do,
And not even just them, but like others in relation to them. Like not just about them themselves. Like you said, they start talking about each other's kids. They start talking about each other's colleagues. They start talking about each other's administrations. Where it's like, all right, yeah, those are important, but the way you weave them is also important. And like you just said, Trump, and you got to give him credit in this part, has figured out the way of messaging, like mastering messaging, because, like you said again, not everyone, most people are not educated in the way that politicians speak or in the way that policy is communicated or in the way that research is conducted, right? So a lot of the times our elected officials are interpreters. That's what a lot of their role is figuring out how to interpret that shit to the rest of us. And that's fine. We can have that role. But Trump does a much better way of capturing the way that more people speak, right? So it's like even if there is no substance, and this is not saying like when I was listening to him, I wasn't believing the things he's saying. Like there's times where he would use words like a lot of these people, right? Or just half of this is going to go away, where he's using purposeful exaggerations where if you're not listening, then you just hear these big statements and you get the feeling of the big statements, which is also another thing. He puts the feeling behind the big statements, and that's what communicates, and you don't look for the fact, because it's like, if there's any little thing that confirms my bias even a little bit, I'm going to attach onto it. And we're all guilty of that. Of course I am. But a lot of people are. And, dude, it's, I don't know. I was trying to figure out what's the right way to combat that.
I don't.
Because I was also thinking if you put him in the booth, because Trump thrives bouncing off people, right? Like, and attack, go, let's go, thrive, energy, and I'm going to feed off what's going on around me, and just momentum, loudness. So that's what I was thinking. Like, if you isolate him and put him in a booth by himself and just have him do the name calling, do his talking in circles stuff by himself, and then you have the other candidate respond and choose whether they want to respond to that or not. We'll then isolate whatever he said, and most of the time we can just forget it. Most of the things that give it life is if you reply or if you respond to it. Otherwise, it's just random thoughts. Like it's just random. Like it's. I was about to say it's this, but not to belittle ourselves. But it's literally just like it's people talking about how they feel about a subject, right?
Yeah.
Rather than the experts that are super educated on it. So it's I think that might be, just let him dig his own hole. Just let him spin around. There was only really 1 or 2 points where I thought, just in terms of not the content of what he's saying, but as an orator and presenting your message in like actual speech, where he had a string of maybe 2 to 3 to 4 minutes in like 2 or 3 separate instances where he's actually was an eloquent way to get your point across and what you were saying, and it made me like want to listen to what you were saying and understand. And I was like, oh shit, okay, so look, there is an aspect of decorum that he's able to do and that he's able to string words together, and so you understand that this guy's not a fucking idiot. He chooses when to seem like one when it's to his advantage, and then we'll just capitalize on that. Because I think, not to say most people are idiots, but most people identify with, again, as we've been saying, the type of way he chooses to communicate to the population rather than someone like Joe Biden. And that sucks. We need someone who can speak the same way, like who can communicate the same way. I did like how Joe Biden
Or
tried to go.
or do the opposite and just actually have substantial evidence,
Yeah.
substantial arguments.
Right. Which he did
Like
do. Again, credit to him. He did do that sometimes. Go.
I just don't know what the next 3 debates are going to look like.
Dude, I'm excited for the vice president one. That'll be something.
At
Kamala
least
and
that'll be
Pence.
something we could bear through, I guess.
And I think that'll be a lot less like interruption showmanship.
Yeah, I
It'll
think
be
so.
more, yeah. You might get your fucking Twitter quotes, but you're always gonna get that. But I'm actually looking forward to that one. I don't know when that is, but I'll be watching that one too. I've definitely never watched a vice president election before.
Yeah.
I don't even think I've watched highlights. Excuse me. Hold on. There was something else. Hold on. There was something else I wanted to say. Let me check my little list because I definitely wrote a lot of things down, dude. But just Trump just with the random statements is crazy. Like when he said China plague, I was like, I was like, oh god. And it, like I said, that was one of the points where it was making me laugh in a way that's not good. Like you're laughing at a train wreck. You just can't look away from it. And then you said we're planting 1 billion trees. I don't know what that was about. That made me laugh, but I was like, that's good if that's true. We're planting 1 billion trees. When they asked him, like, what do you think about climate change? We're planting 1 billion trees. I was like, okay,
yeah,
that's good.
true.
Go ahead. Oh, man. I mean, obviously, there's the big part where he didn't disavow the white supremacy when the question
Oh,
was asked to him
God.
directly. Yeah.
That's something
was,
that both sides did. Okay, so in their attacks, they actually managed to get a few moments where they separated away from what their campaign would want them to say.
What do you mean?
So like when they attacked Trump on this, right?
Mm-hmm.
He finally responded about the white supremacists, but he said the stand back and stand by.
Yeah, dude. At first I
Which,
thought he said
what the
stand.
fuck?
Yeah, at first I thought he said stand down, and I was like, oh, everybody's fucking up the quote. But then I went back and I was listening to it today again, like just try to refresh. But yeah, when he said stand back and stand by, I was like, dude, no. And that's one of those things where I was like, okay, I don't think he. I mean, he purposely chose those words in terms of he was trying to avoid saying stand down outright because that would have totally eliminated the base. But I don't know if he was trying to say stand by or if that just slipped out of his tongue. But because he's who he is and because his followers, or those followers at least, are who they are, it is going to get interpreted like that, whether he meant it to or not.
Of course it is.
And it was nuts.
How is he not aware of that? You know, like how I'm sure his
Exactly.
campaign didn't want him to say some shit like that. I'm sure his campaign doesn't want him to say a lot of shit, but I think that was one of the moments where he kind of slipped up. Like he had the chance to be like, I condemn white supremacy. If he said that,
It would have been so easy.
it would have been like he could have won off of that the election.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people could just be like, look, he's obviously not racist, but
Yeah.
didn't.
Wow, you're right.
he didn't. So
Whoa, you're
so
right.
now
'Cause
he's
it's
kind of racist
because
Like,
he never. I mean, and you know, we'll discuss this idea behind this in a second. But there was a couple points where he mentioned being called racist. He's like, I shut down the economy. He called me racist. He called me xenophobic. All that type of shit. But he never said that he wasn't. Like he just said that it happened, and then like, and obviously the white supremacist part. But then you know, there's the argument of well, not giving credence to something that's not even true. But then when the white supremacist part comes up, it's like, all right, Drew, bro, you have something to answer for, and you didn't. You actually made it a lot worse, which was really bad, really bad. So that's
Now,
fucking bad.
on the other side, Trump managed to get Biden to say that he doesn't support Medicare for all or the Green New Deal. Not necessarily that he doesn't support it,
But he has a different
that,
proposal.
that those aren't his plans. you know?
Right.
And even just the way he said it makes it seem like he doesn't support those.
Yeah.
So a lot of people can be like, oh shit, now Biden doesn't support the thing that I care about. Why would I vote for him?
Yeah, fact. And I did like that he did that. I mean, just in terms of if you don't believe that and you're not running it, don't just let him say that and like be. That's where I thought he did a good job of discrediting what Trump said and pivoting into his position. Where as opposed to when he would just try to discredit what Trump said and let him continue the back and forth, where it's like, I don't know. Something I was thinking like, what would I do if I was in this situation when Trump just started rambling and interrupting? I just thought, okay, I'm gonna stay quiet, wait till he's done. I'm gonna speak to the moderator and be like, and refresh the audience. What was your question again? Or what did you ask me? And then go back and answering. And I'm just gonna keep that on repeat until you know what. Listen, my might run out, but that's gonna at least set a precedent for noticing, okay, something's fucked up about either this format, this candidate, or the way that this is being conducted, that one candidate literally couldn't get anything out. And you know what? I might take the L that first debate. I might.
Yep.
But I think
Because
that's
if
something
yeah,
that would spark change in the next.